Right now, for the last 10 months, we've been going through a change of unprecedented magnitude that the world hasn't seen for several decades, and it's been a shock and had an impact on the entire world. And we have experienced a lot of physical aspects of that change. For example, we have to wear masks. The stores have put up plexiglass for us to be able to talk to people or to go to the counters. We have to have restrictions on not going into restaurants, or on a modified version, we're not allowed to go into other businesses that are closed. And if we go into businesses, we have to wear a mask. We're sanitizing our hands all the time. So all of these things are the physical aspects of change. We can see it, and it affects our actions and behaviors. But there's another part that's below the surface of change that's called transition. And William Bridges in the 1980s popularized this term with his book called Transitions. And transitions is basically the emotional and mental aspects that are taking place below the surface of where you're at. So for me, looking at the past 10 months on the emotional, mental side, I've looked at being knocked off purpose a little bit, because as a mentor, I'm working with a variety of clients. I had to learn how to shift from in-person to what I'm doing now in terms of videos and Zoom. So that was I had a lot of sense of trepidation, not a lot of confidence going into that area. So I reached out to people who had that to help me. There was that sense of loss of not being able to see our kids as often, or our mothers as often as we could. We resorted, like everybody else, to meeting out in the garage 6 feet apart and having a coffee and a donut or whatever. So those are some of the underlying emotions that I went through, that fear of the unknown, what's happening in the future, how long is this going to go? And I think that those are things that almost all people experience during this transition. So the difference between a physical change and a transition is the physical is the actions and behaviors, and the physical things we participate in. What's going on with transitions is below the surface, and ultimately that's where we are looking at the emotional, mental impact on us. To look at it, transition with William Bridges basically has 3 phases. Most stories start with a beginning, a middle, and an end. When you go to the movies, it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. Bridges reversed the process and says that change starts with an end, goes into an uncertainty zone, and then goes into that new beginning or comfort zone. And it makes sense, because most of the changes in our lives are precipitated by a certain event, whether it's a conscious decision, or in this case with the pandemic, we were forced to make a change that we weren't prepared for. So we have those 3 phases. At the end of where we're at, that current comfort zone that we were in got shattered. We're now in this uncertainty zone where we're looking at a sense of fear, trepidation, uncertainty, but also we've seen a lot of creativity and opportunity that's been created. So the uncertainty zone is really a mixed blessing of being in that zone. It's what you make of it. And ultimately, I don't think yet that we're still at the new beginning. I mean, the ending of the vaccine, or receiving the vaccines and moving off into that next phase when COVID is not gone but contained, is still a ways away. So we're still in the uncertainty zone. But one of the things that I use to help people understand the uncertainty zone is a rubber band. And on this side is where I am today. And as I get pushed out into the uncertainty zone by COVID, or for example, I get pushed out into this uncertainty zone when we had another child, we get moved into this new part of our lives. And once we're in the uncertainty zone, we have 2 forces that are acting on us. One is the emotional pullback of going back to the way things were, and the other one is that pull of moving forward. And in most cases, that move forward is driven by your purpose and why you want to make that change. In this case, we've been driven forward, and there isn't anything really yet in this whole pandemic that's pulling us forward, at least unless it's on a personal level. So we have those 3 phases again. We have the ending zone, we're in the transition zone, and then we move out. And as long as we're in the transition zone, we can be moving back and forward. And every time we push out our comfort limits, we expand our vision and our understanding of the world. But one of the things that you need to know about this stretching of the bands is that it's very time consuming and it's very energy draining. So look at it as in terms of procrastination when you're having a hard time making a decision. You're here and you're vacillating on the decision on what you're going to do, and in much times it's much easier to just make the decision and get the snap, that little bit of pain that happens, but you've used a lot less energy, and whether the band breaks or you let it go, the pain is still the same, and it's a lot less pain than if all that energy and indecision and waste of time that's occurred while you've been procrastinating. So unfortunately in the pandemic zone right now, we're still in that uncertainty zone, feeling what's pulling me into the future, and a lot of businesses are jumping on it, looking at opportunities and finding ways to move forward. And some businesses are still here and being pulled back to, why can't we have it the way it was? And so until we get to that point, as I mentioned earlier, where COVID is contained and the vaccine is robust and out, we're going to be in that uncertainty zone, and we're going to feel that tension. Again, it's a stress in our minds, and it's a stress that we can control by taking a step back and looking at what's impacting on our stress levels at that time. So thanks for letting me share you that little story. And again, if you have any questions, you can connect with me on Dana on LinkedIn or Dana at rippledynamics.com. And thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.